Hello, everyone. It is your girl, Marcie Thomas, and I am so excited to be here with you for an episode of Live Well Sister. It's been a minute since we've done an episode, a new episode, and I am so glad to be here with you following a holiday, leading into another holiday season and a new year, just as we prepare to really think about some of the things that are going to help us to live well, not just for the rest of this year, but in 2025 and beyond. So I am coming to you from the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Cleveland, Ohio. And if you're here, wherever you're from, please, if you don't mind, shout it out. Let us know where you're joining us from, just so we can know who all is in the room. Also, if this is your first time or if you've been here many times, welcome again. And it's such a pleasure to have you here. And for anyone who's watching in a replay, thank you for taking the time to watch as well. So this conversation that we're about to have is just so meaningful. And I have to say off the top that, first of all, thank you to Wanda Lloyd, who is the person who introduced me to this wonderful woman that we're about to speak to. But just the fact that this conversation right now is important for so many reasons, because how many of you all out there are working probably too much? I'm raising my hand, raise the other hand. You can't see my feet. My feet are raised as well, because we do a lot, and oftentimes we don't really know how to manage our work life, have a sense of balance, and there are times we might get burnt out. And this book that we're going to talk about tonight is all about that, and it is The Rest Revolution by Amanda Miller Littlejohn. So let me tell you a little bit about her before I bring her up. Now, she is a nationally recognized executive coach, speaker, and thought leader in personal branding and leadership development. As the founder of Package Your Genius Academy, Amanda has spent over a decade helping high achievers uncover their purpose and amplify their visibility. With expertise in public relations, personal branding, and executive coaching, her newest book, The Rest Revolution, How to Reclaim Your Rhythm and Conquer Burnout When Overworking Has Become the Norm. That's quite a title there. But it offers timely insights into the importance of rest, renewal, and resilience in today's fast-paced world. And without any further delay, let's go ahead and bring Amanda Miller Littlejohn to the stage. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much, Marcie, for that beautiful introduction. I was like, I need to take you with me.
Okay.
Just introduce me everywhere I go.
Let's go. So I'm so excited to have you here just to talk about your new book that just came out like last week. And so I know that, you know, you've had some personal things happening around at the same time. Yeah, at the very same time. And if you don't mind me sharing, you can share what's going on. No, Amanda has lost a family member the same day that the book came out.
Yes. So the day that my book came out, that same morning, my grandmother passed away. And this was one of my favorite humans, period. I mean, definitely my favorite grandparent. And I feel really blessed to have had her for so many years, but it was unexpected. And it was kind of like, you know, oh, she's sick. Oh, she's in the hospital and there's some pneumonia. Oh, we're doing hospice. And I'm like, what? So it was kind of let me try to scramble to get there, you know, this weekend. And before the weekend, she was already gone. And literally the day the book came out, was the day that she transitioned. And so it has been a very interesting few weeks. I keep looking for the meaning, the sign, the divine, whatever that's happening, or whatever that was meant to signify. But it's tough. And I think, you know, living the very things you just wrote about,
right,
you know,
right.
it was almost comical. Like, it was like really? That's what we're doing? You know?
Right.
Okay. I guess you really wanted me to feel it. So when I'm talking about it, it's fresh. But I mean, as we kind of talked about briefly before, it's you know, one of the things I write about in the book is grief, losing someone and not having the opportunity at the time or the space to process is really something that kept coming up over and over again during the interviews I was doing with people for the book. And so to literally have that experience and feel how, you know, visceral that soul exhaustion of grief can be, especially when it's like the timing is you're supposed to be on all cylinders and you literally cannot. It's been really connecting me to the book that I wrote myself in a whole new way. Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up, not to bring up anything sad per se, but just that it's real.
It's so real. And it's literally, and it's so timely, like up to the minute. I'm like,
right. And you may not have seen it, but our sister Wanda does send condolences. So
oh, thank you.
Thank you for being here, Wanda. We appreciate you so much. And thank you for making this connection.
And Wanda, that is actually, I think I had mentioned to Wanda about my grandmother, because my grandmother lived in southeastern Georgia, not too far from Wanda.
Okay, well, no, you have to tell me where, because my mother's in Hinesville. So where was she?
Waynesboro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of like halfway between Macon and Savannah.
Okay.
Off of 16.
Yeah, I know that road well. Actually, I lived not too far from Wanda's several years ago. That's how we met. So yes, yes, we have that connection. So, but this book, it's such a powerful book because, well, one thing, you are now part of the canon of Black women who are writing about what it means to rest, what it means to take a step back. And I just think that that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. But in your book in particular, you are really tying it into how it shows up in a work situation, how we get burnt out, you know, and how that, whether it's a job that we are showing up at somebody else for a 9 to 5, or whether it's having our own businesses and what it means and what it looks like to get burnt out. So first of all, what was really the motivation that made you want to put this particular work out into the world?
You know, I have to thank my clients for inspiring me. And, you know, a few years ago, I was running a cohort of women through my personal branding program at Packager Genius Academy. And we are exploring our brands and trying to figure out who are we and how do we communicate that powerfully into the world. Some people are making pivots. Some people are just trying to figure out, how do I start speaking more, sharing more, elevating my profile so I can be compensated more, all the things. And we're supposed to be talking about branding and positioning ourselves, but the conversation kept coming back to exhaustion. Everyone was just tired. We were just all on fumes. Now, this was also kind of like mid-pandemic, so early 2021. I believe the vaccine had come out, but I'm not sure. But we were all kind of just like, you know, in our homes, working all the time. That line between work and life was just super blurred because people are working remotely and just kind of sequestered. And I really could not escape the conversation because these women were all in different parts of the country. They were not connected to one another personally or professionally. And yet there was this thread, aside from the desire to build personal brands, that was really connecting all of us. And so as I kind of talked, I think I talked about this in the book, one of the things that I started to really hear more intensely for myself was the call to write more and return to my journalistic roots. And I didn't know where it was going to go or even what I wanted to write about. I just knew that I missed writing and sharing and really putting my work out there. And so I had started attending classes and joining groups just to kind of get in community with writers, to maybe stumble upon what I had to say. And so it was around that time that I'm working with this group, and I keep hearing this exhaustion. And then Simone Biles had her experience. There was just like a few different things happening around people saying, I'm gonna rest. So I wrote an article for the Washington Post all about how we were all exhausted and reclaiming our rest. And I remember writing the article. It got, a lot of response, a lot of conversations. People were emailing me, DMing me, like, I have a story. And the article itself was only about 900 words, but I had done about 6 hours worth of interviews for that story. So much was cut. And I thought to myself, this is a book.
Yes.
This is a book.
I love that. I love that.
That was how it kind of started, and once that seed was planted of like, I think this is a book, I just held on to it and started, looking for pathways and avenues to make it happen.
Yes, and I do appreciate it, based on some of the things that you and I talked about behind the scenes, which we'll probably get into in the conversation. It's timely for me as well, because it's one of the things, it's so easy to get into a space of burnout because we feel like we have to be the best and we have to work twice as hard. I mean, we've heard this, and you talk about these things in the book, how we've always been told that we have to work twice as hard to have half as much. And so many of us fall into this space of, in our workplaces, we've got, 5 degrees where somebody else might not have 1 because we have to work harder. Or in our personal lives, we're doing what we do during the day, but then we have to come home and tend to families or church or, all these things we've got going on, and we are so busy, and it's so easy to get burnt out and maybe not even realize that you're burnt out.
Oh yeah. I think especially for that cohort of women, it became apparent that we had kind of normalized it, and the conversations that we were having among ourselves just helped us almost see our insanity, right? Like that scene that I talk about in the book where being in the house with my kids during the pandemic because they were going to school and they were able to see my day to day, and they were just like, what is wrong with you? Sometimes you need someone who is not necessarily familiar with your routine to get a window into it, to be able to tell you where you are doing way, way too much.
Well, tell us a little bit about your burnout story, because you do share that in the book.
So I'm like, which one? No. The story that I talk about that really, I guess, that was a pivotal burnout moment for me because my husband and I decided that we wanted to have one more child. We have 2 teenage sons and really wanted a girl. Of course, there's no guarantee, but I'm like, I want to try for a girl. And so we ended up having her at the end of December. Now, she was born during the pandemic, but she was not what they call a pandemic baby. She was very much an intentional choice and all of that. But the, pregnancy, giving birth, also having little support through that process because of COVID. My mom wasn't able to come up to be in the hospital with me. And also because she's in her 70s, it was scary. It's like, okay, well, if you fly, like that's a risk, number one. And then even coming here, like being around my kids, etc., they seem okay, but you know how that goes. People pick up things, and next thing you know, a person who's a little, and she has some respiratory issues that have been pretty long standing. So I didn't really want to risk her being there. But that lack of support was really glaring. And then at the same time, my business had kind of exploded because a lot of people were interested in the personal branding and thought leadership work because they had a little bit of time to think about it in the pandemic. So I've got a newborn baby, a business that's bursting at the seams. What else? Oh, I've got these kids who are now schooling in the house. So I'm parenting them and kind of serving as their like dean, you know, or whatever, principal.
Dean of students, right?
And that was really interesting too, just having to say, excuse me, do you have your notepad and your pen? Class starts in 30 seconds. Like, are you ready? So it all kind of came to a head, and I got really sick when my daughter was about 6 weeks old. I ended up having like this really bad breast infection, and it was my body was basically breaking down, saying, you're doing way, way too much. And so that kind of forced me to stop. But prior to that point, when you talk about working twice as hard to have as much, one of the things that I've been fascinated with and tried to bring into the book was just like the muscle memory that comes from overworking like that. You really don't realize that you are not normal, or that you're not like, this is not how your body, your brain, your systems were meant to function. And so I had been just out of habit an overworker, and that kind of confluence of events, the pandemic, just all the things, the perfect storm that just brought me down. And I had never really reached my limit before in that way, like physically, mentally, all of the things. And it just forced me to sit down.
And sometimes, and this kind of ties back to what we were talked about at the beginning with your grandmother. It's something that happens that's unexpected, that just kind of knocks you for a loop, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, hold up. And I mean, for many of us, the pandemic was that just in and of itself. Because we were used to being in this space of, ripping and running and all the things. And then all of a sudden everything shuts down. And then what? When everything shuts down and it's like, oh, you got more time to think. But for me, I have to say that it was a combination of things. Because yes, I couldn't go out and do all the stuff that I would normally do, like be in them streets. I couldn't do that. Not in a negative way. I just like to do stuff, y'all. Go places. I couldn't do that. But then I found myself, being at the computer more, working more, maybe taking in more news, just doing all these things that weren't necessarily the norm, and taking in all these messages. Of course, every crazy thing with the pandemic, the political state at the time, which we don't have to talk about that. And also the things that were happening in our community as Black people. So it's just a lot.
It was a lot. And I still don't think we've truly processed how a lot that is all of the things. And I think we need to brace ourselves. I mean, I know we're not getting political, but
get a little bit.
I just, I recall like the pandemic, one of the kind of, I guess, logic patterns people were saying was like, well, if there were more funding for the different government agencies, and I'm like, okay, so are we going to have another pandemic?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, these are things that, yes.
Hopefully we've learned.
And, we can do the things that we need to do. Looks like yours help us. I'll just say that, so we can like really think about, what it means to not allow ourselves to get caught up in the matrix, so to speak, and just figure out, how we're going to live our best lives and make sure that we're incorporating rest in that. So, of course, in the book, you have 14 chapters. There's no way we can go through all of it, but you do give like some historical background about how we got to this place of, being people that overwork, how we have been taught to act as machines. And oftentimes we internalize that we've gotten it from other places. And sometimes our workplaces may expect us to operate as machines, as not as humans.
Yes. So you want me to go into that machine mindset a little bit?
Yes.
And, I think I will say that, man, I think the title of this broadcast, like we're talking to a lot of people of African descent, maybe African Americans, etc. Slavery was a big conversation in this cohort of Packager Genius Academy. And I touched on it a smidge in the book, but I really wanted to advance that timeline a bit more, because I feel like a lot of times for both Black and non-Black people, the concept of slavery feels so far removed or so long ago. And I think, you know, we can look to our families of origin and see directly the different mores and norms and communication styles and disciplinarian styles that are a direct, you know, inheritance. But I think this machine mindset is across the board. It really impacts people of all races, of all backgrounds, because it is woven into the fabric of work in this country, right? And so I think slavery is like a precursor. But slavery dictated that, you know, only we were treated like machines. But machine mindset is just like everybody's a machine.
Everybody is.
You need to make, if the more money you can make me, the better. And we see that in our society now, just with how overblown employee or CEO compensation is. And then you've got the employees at the bottom, and even just the disparities in wealth distribution from the people at the very top, the people at the very bottom. Like it's evident that, you know, for many people are just considered cogs in the machine. But anyway, I go into the Industrial Revolution because I think people can conceptualize that time frame a bit easier. And again, it was where I think we saw so much changing in terms of, you know, the changes that we can look at around us right now. And so I talk a little bit about just management thinkers who emerged during that time that really helped shape the language. I guess now we may call it HR and management, etc. But, you know, people were moving from farms to factories, from just, okay, I work with my family, I work with my cousins, and now I'm working with strangers. So how do we organize all of this? And one of the people that I was most fascinated by was Frederick Taylor, who had a background in mechanical engineering, mechanics, machines. And so essentially, he was brought in to organizations to do these studies to figure out, well, what's the best way, the most efficient way to build this wall, to assemble this box, to whatever, and kind of prescribe that method to the workers so that they could be more efficient, produce perfectly, and essentially increase the profitability of the companies. And so when you think about perfectionism, efficiency, and productivity and you kind of layer that over the workplaces that we have inherited and that we look at today, you can kind of see how that shift from, okay, just do your thing, to, okay, let's standardize this. Okay, let's literally make you more machine-like. We're experiencing that. And I've coached people in organizations, whether through groups or just individually. And this idea of perfectionism is a big one because people don't feel like they have the room to make mistakes. Like, you make a mistake, you could be fired, you could not get the promotion that you've earned. Like that humanity, like we are not perfect. We're not. But we are afraid to show our humanity, to show our imperfection, because there are very real consequences. And so I think the machine mindset is really, it's more than just, okay, machines don't need rest, but machines can be more efficient. They don't need to grieve, you know, they don't need to grieve.
Exactly.
They can just keep it moving. They don't need to sit down and take a break, and they can operate, you know, with perfection to a point, as long as, you know, all of their pieces and parts are in working order. But that's not the case for
It's
humans.
not the case. And, as you were talking about that, yes, we think about that in the workplaces, but then also now we are in a space where, people are they're creating their own businesses. And, as you talk about, a lot of your work has been people building brands, becoming social media personalities and all of that. And that same mindset has shifted over into those spaces as well, where some people, and you talk about even with yourself, like, oh, if I don't have a post going up every day, then there's a problem. Or if I'm not showing up online all the time, people are, people out of sight, out of mind type of thing, that I have to be this machine who's always putting out content, always, in the spotlight, or else people are going to move on to something else.
Or even, the insanity of having this third baby that's this blessing and not taking maternity leave, and I run the company. So that tells you how deeply ingrained the machine mindset is. You don't even realize that the program is running. You know what I mean? Like, no one said, hey, Amanda, you can't take a break. I said, well, I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna show them how
Wonder Woman. Yes.
Right. Why? And it was one of the things, I'm not sure if I wrote this in the book or not, but I remember Connor, my middle child, during all of this, me falling apart, body breaking down, he said to me, you don't have to do all, like, you can take a break from all of the things. And then he says, Bean, that's what we call my daughter, Bean needs you. And do you know that had not occurred to me?
Wow.
Like, you're right. Bean needs me. But who, what doesn't have a small human needing? The machines don't, right. It just, I think trying to keep up with the pace of that expectation of being machine-like really, and it's funny, I don't think it had occurred to me until a child was looking at me and saying,
see, because they're watching and they're observing, everything that you do and taking that in. So that's something. So we've talked a lot about how we got there, but you spent a good amount of the book talking about ways to start to, deprogram. I really like your concept of purpose scaping.
Yay!
Talk about that. Tell us what that is. Well, first of all, who the person who inspired it?
Yes, you really did read.
I really did read, ma'am.
Yes,
you should have asked Wanda. She would have told you.
So purposescaping kind of came to me several years ago, but it's a seasonal agricultural framework that essentially you can layer over any part of your life. You can layer it over work, relationships, your health, whatever. But my grandmother helped me flesh out the concept because I really wanted it to mirror as closely as possible the cycles of farming in the part of the country that my family is from, so the southeastern United States, because both my grandmother's husband, my grandfather, was a farmer. They were both actually educators, and then his passion, his post-retirement passion was farming. But then also my grandmother's father, my great-grandfather, was a farmer as well. And so farming obviously runs in the family, but I had the opportunity to interview my grandmother around all of the different things that happen during the seasons on a farm. And I even got to record a podcast with her. So that's wonderful. And I feel so fortunate that she indulged me and just kind of was like, okay, whatever. I don't know what this is, but let's do it. And so purposescaping really looks at your life, or even an aspect of your life. So you could take even me in this process of reconnecting with my writing journey and say, okay, if I were to look back over this season of writing, there has been a period of spring planting, a period of summer growth, a period of fall harvest, and a period of winter rest. And so what you are doing in each of those periods or seasons, there are specific things to both be doing and looking out for, right? And so it's funny because I interviewed my grandmother and I was asking her, well, what are some of the things you need to be looking out for in the summer? And she was talking about, drought is a big issue around here, especially if you don't have your irrigation together. And of course, you've got to, look out for pests because they want to eat too. And I was like, when she's saying this, like the metaphor is just coming to life for me, because I immediately thought, like, no one really comes around when you don't have anything good growing, right? nobody's bothering you.
Right.
You don't have anything going on. But let you start growing and let you start having, a yield, like people swarm in to attack. So you need to be prepared for that. Yes. Instead of being surprised that, the enemy is expected. Weeds and pests, they coming.
Right. Trying to choke the life out of the thing you're trying to grow.
Exactly. But you have to be preemptive and be vigilant and be mindful. A farmer doesn't say, oh, well, here come the bugs. I guess I'll just hang it up and let them have it. Let them have all my... No, you fight. And so that is really, simply stated, the 4 seasons each have corresponding things you should be looking for, but also things you should be doing. Right. And it can really help you look at your life through a different lens to see, well, maybe I'm not late, maybe I'm not behind, maybe I'm simply in my summer season, or maybe this is winter, right? And because winter is necessary, and that's one of the things I talk about in the book that leads to burnout so often, is repeatedly skipping winter. People think, I want to bloom, I want to grow, I want to harvest, I want my flowers to show. I don't want to wilt. I don't want to prune. I don't want to be dormant. I don't want my leaves to fall and for there to be nothing visible above ground. But you need that time, right? You need that time to reflect, to take stock of what you grew and how that worked for you. If you want to repeat this growing cycle, do you want to change out your crops? Do you need to change out your machinery? Do you need to partner with some new people so that maybe y'all can combine your acreage and grow something completely new? You have to take periodic seasons to reflect over what has happened, so you know what's going on, where you're going, and also what you want. That's one of the biggest things that I find in my work with high achievers, is just kind of a lack of direction and a lack of being in touch with what they actually want. You have to get still to get those answers. But so many of us are just moving and trying to, show the fruits of our labor, that we don't take that time to be dormant and rest.
Yes, that is so important. It's so important. And just to let everyone know, when you read the book, I love the fact you include some of the people that you interview, some names that you might be, others might be familiar with, like I'm thinking specifically Myleik Teele. You talked to her, who did the curl box, and is not doing the curl box anymore, is doing some other wonderful things. And also Stacey Ferguson, I was familiar with her in the work that she did with Blogalicious for many, many years. So I like the fact that, yes, you're telling your story and your perspective. You also have stories or information that is, what should I say, that is from the experts, so to speak, that are, the psychologists and things like that, but then also real world stories. And I really liked seeing that, specifically looking at Stacey and Myleik, women that have pivoted. They might have been doing this thing at a really high level, and then they determined at some point in time that they had to do something different because that just wasn't working for them anymore. So, and that's something that I think, back to that whole thing of we always have to perform, we always have to show up, we always have to be seen, being afraid of what will happen if we decide to do something different, that it takes a lot of courage to do that, but it's important to do that. And being able to go through those seasons and having an understanding of what your purpose is. You know, what is your end game, so to speak? That end game can be a lot of different ways.
I think too, even just now thinking about the conversations with Stacy and my leak, and then going back to my own experience with just like reclaiming this writerly season, the lesson in, you know, making a departure or a pivot, especially from something that other people love, right? Mm-hmm. Which is really hard to imagine. Like, wow, you let that go. You ended that. It was making you so much money, or people really love that. People are always coming to your stuff. What I really took away from their stories and really resonated with my own experience was, you know, when you hear that inner conversation, that inner nudge, that guidance, that thing like, you know what, this ain't it, or you're gonna have to do something different, or you know you need to pick up your pen and write, like, you know, that's what you really want to do. Mm-hmm. That is it. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but I have not talked to a person who listened to their own intuitive guidance and regretted it, no matter what they had to leave behind.
Right.
And so I think that is, if you don't read anything else, or if you only read the back of the cover of the book, you know, you just flip through, take that, like, start listening to yourself, become a student of yourself, learn to tune into yourself, because that's when you'll start to even be able to perceive when your seasons are changing. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. So there is also, and these are several chapters, it's actually 5, and we're going to kind of go through them as we can, but they were just really, really good. I mean, one of the things, the chapter where you talked about restoring yourself, because that's a part of getting that rest, learning how to restore yourself. So talk a little bit about what that means when you mean to restore yourself, not for somebody else to restore you, but for you to restore your own self.
So the work that I do has put me face to face with a lot of people who are at a crossroads. Maybe it's a midlife, you might call it a crisis, but I think it's an alignment, a midlife alignment, where they've achieved a lot of great things and they have followed the guidance of people who they've trusted, or, you know, maybe even they have given the wheel to other people or forces, because it's like, okay, this is what I should do because this is what I'm good at, or this is what makes me money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there comes a point when, after you rack up the accolades, the positions, the financial rewards, the whatever, and you're still not on fire for your life, a lot of people start going searching for answers, for guidance, for, you know, resources to help them figure out what else is there for me, and what should I be doing? Like, what is my purpose?
Right.
And the Restore Yourself chapter is really about helping you get back in touch. Like, that's another, look, I keep saying, if you don't read it, read this too. One of the things that leads us to burnout is just a lack of self-knowledge. We don't know who we are, what we want, what we need. And so when you're not super clear on what you need, if someone hands you something, you take it because you don't know that that's not what you need or what you want. But when it's out of alignment, it creates friction that exhausts you. So that could be not even knowing how you like or need people to communicate with you for you to do your best work. So then you don't set the boundaries, but you find yourself kind of always irritated or worked up and stressed out and tense around that person or in that situation, when what you could do is simply state, you know, don't talk to me that way, or if we're going to work together, this is how it's going to need to be. So yes, in dealing with other people, but more so in dealing with yourself. What do you like to do? What are you good at doing? What contribution are you here to make? Do you want to make? What audience do you want to serve? Right? What are some of the practices that make you feel grounded, safe, in touch with yourself, whole? you know, I love to journal. I love a walk in nature. Everyone doesn't love that, but you've got to find whatever stillness practice brings you back home to yourself. But I talk about restoring yourself because across the board, and it's one of the things that I really feel like connects all of the previous work I've been doing with coaching to this conversation around rest, because getting clear on who you are, what you want, what you need, what energizes you, what contribution you want to make, that clarity can really just kind of get rid of a lot of the things that exhaust us. Like once you're clear on what you need and what you want and how you want to move, it's easier to make decisions that allow you to set your life up in a way that doesn't exhaust you. And you can't outsource that. You can't ask someone else.
Yeah, nobody else can do that.
No, you got to restore that connection. So it's restoring yourself, yes, but more so it's restoring your connection to yourself.
Yes, I love that. And you do in the book, you give ways that we, you can do that. You've already mentioned what some of yours are to, to walk in nature or to journal. And it, as you say, it's different for everyone. Might be going dancing, whatever it is, just that thing that helps you restore yourself and get a sense of who you are.
And I'm the queen of a question. So I have a million questions in there. And I also have, I literally have a journal, a workbook for my Package Your Genius work. It's like 150 questions to help you get clear on, like, it's more career and brand focused, but it's all the same. It's all the same stuff. Like, what lights me up? When was the last time I felt super energized? Who was around me? What was I doing? At what point did it not, feel good anymore? How long did that last? Like, even small preferences, like a quick example with coaching. I used to coach a lot of people who were trying to figure out, well, how do I structure some sort of consultative or coaching offer outside of or on the side of my day job? I don't want to, work with someone for 6 months or a year. I don't, want to do X, Y, and Z. And so I kind of stumbled upon this concept of like either being an activator or a maintainer, right? So are you a person who is kind of like when you think of a plane going down a runway, it takes a lot of fuel, a lot of energy, a lot to get that plane down the runway and up into the air. And then, you get to the cruising altitude and you can kind of coast. But that initial push off of the ground, it takes a lot. Some people get you off of the ground and into the air. And then after that, they're like, oh, okay, bye. Don't call me next week talking about, well, now what do I do? And then there's some people who can fly you from New York to San Francisco, and be with you every step of the way. But knowing that about yourself, am I a person who really just wants to help people get activated? And then I can pass them off to maybe an accountability partner who can hold space for them over the long term. Just knowing that shifts so much for people if you're in that position of trying to figure out, well, how do I position myself for coaching? Because what happens is a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to do a long engagement, so I guess I can't coach. And it's not that you can't coach. You have to figure out your specific slice of that equation, because that's a very valuable slice.
Right.
It's hard to get people activated,
Right. Exactly. To find your lane and operate in that lane and not be concerned that maybe the other lane isn't your lane. So,
or to think you have to do it all, or to think that, well, just because someone else does it this way, you have to find what is energizing to you and even pay attention to those nuances of like, this feels really fun up until the point when the plane is in the air for me. And so maybe I can just build something around that, like the runway and up into the air. And that's that.
I love it. Another thing that you talk about is realigning ambition. And I thought that is powerful because ambition is different for everyone. There's the whole thing of the quote unquote American dream that isn't necessarily what it's cracked up to be for a lot of people. But, defining what it means to be successful or what it really means to be ambitious under your own terms. That's important as well.
I definitely think that's important. I would say that ambition is different for everyone, but also ambition is different for you in different seasons, So what may have been your ambition 15 years ago, everything is purpose-gaping. Everything is moving in seasons. And that's why you have to do the winter work of stopping to reflect, assess, rest, and really see where you are and what you want to plant. Nothing lasts forever in the same way that it started, or it shouldn't, at least. Like, we are evolving as beings. And I think that our machine mindset culture, our workplace cultures do not encourage people to be perpetually tending and pruning and assessing their needs, how they have grown, what matters to them now. I would even say that for myself, and I think it's pretty natural. It's not unique to me in any way, but where you are in your 20s and 30s and what drives you in your 20s and 30s, it changes. So, I think I would love to be a breakout, successful author and writer, and I will be. Like, I plan to be, right? But I think what is driving me now is less about achievement for achievement's sake, or the accolades that I feel like reaching a milestone will get me, and more about, how much closer am I to my truth, my path, how I want to get so tight on that road, right? Where it's like, I'm hugging that road and I'm on it. I'm not like, over here in this lane. No, I want to be on the path that was assigned to me, that I was sent here to do and to fulfill. And so I think as long as my needs for my household, food, shelter, entertainment, education for my children, etc., as long as those are met, then it really just becomes about purpose. And I've been really encouraged, and I know it's connected, but I didn't talk a ton about this in the book, but I've been really encouraged over this last week to see so many people talking about consumption and how, like Black Friday sales and I'm buying this, I'm buying that. People are like, I'm good. I don't need to buy that. And I think there's a connection to be made to people starting to wake up to the fact that those things, buying things, owning more things, working to achieve, to earn, to show off more things, that ain't it. Like, that does not do it. Like, after a while, you get enough things and you're like, you know what? That thing felt kind of just like the last thing. And honestly, I don't really need another thing.
I don't need another thing.
Can we go to Paris? Can we, volunteer and teach some kids how to write books? Can we, start
something, and my mom, who will be 80 next month, she often talks about that. She'll say, even though she's got things too, we do like our things.
We like our things.
However, she is oftentimes saying now it's more about experiences.
Absolutely.
Because, there's certain experiences that, it might be a once in a lifetime experience. So why not go and do that thing? But that actually, I'm gonna put these two together, because you talk about restoring and realigning time and space. So really, you kind of touched on it a little bit right there about the space and things, that sometimes the space that we're in is so overrun with things and stuff that it's hard to even focus because you're just overrun.
Yes. I talk about in the book, like, going to this rest retreat where it was this really sparse room, and prior to getting there, I don't know. You know how sometimes you feel like you got something on your heart, on your spirit, on your mind, but you don't know, you can't put your finger on it, but it's just kind of like nagging you. And I hadn't really been able to get still enough and focus at home in my own space, because like my own space is full of reminders of things I need to do, forms I need to fill out. Somebody needs new long johns, or, you know, a new pair of socks or whatever. Oh, I got to do the shopping for the lunches. So all the things. And so I had gone to this space. It's actually in Washington, D.C. It's called the Huru Space. And they were holding this, like, it was a communal rest session, but it was just beautiful. Like the room was pretty empty except for the furniture. And the absence of physical things and my own things really, it just like took this enormous weight off of my nervous system, and it allowed me to really kind of zero in on what was on my mind and on my heart. And I had a really amazing journaling session, but it made me really think about how much we allow our spaces to become overrun, and we don't realize like the cognitive load that is putting on us to be surrounded by things, because then you have to make decisions about the things.
Exactly.
Or if it's time to buy new things, you know, okay, am I going to get rid of some stuff, or I'm just going to pile on to the old stuff? And at a certain point, I think people are starting to realize, do I need? No, I don't need all of this stuff. I don't need it. I don't need it. And as to your mom's point, I'd rather have an experience that I can really remember. Like when you think about, as you do your winter work, your winter reflection during your sabbatical, think about the moments from this past year, the things, whatever, moments, things, people that just you think about fondly. You can reflect back on and say, oh, that was my favorite thing about 2024. I'll guarantee you it was a trip or a meal or a walk or a conversation or a hug that you had either with a loved one or with yourself, and not one of the things that you bought, even if you bought some really good things.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so when you put it in that frame of, I'm doing my winter reflecting work, what really mattered? Well, if we're going to double down on what matters, wouldn't we double down on those experiential moments versus the things that we're accumulating for what? So, you know, I have all the questions.
Yes.
Don't have all the answers, but I definitely hope that this book will make people just
it really
and think.
Making me think. And you gave me some pointers in the part where you talk about realigning time. I don't want to skip over that, because a lot of times, well, I do believe in PTO. And as you mentioned, sabbatical, I'm actually on a sabbatical from my day job right now for 6 weeks. And yes, even though I'm still going to be doing some things, but I won't be doing all of the things. So that's, you know, what's going to make it good for me. But you know, it is important that we take our time, that we, you know, PTO, rest time, you know, take a nap. You know, in the book you mentioned Trisha Hersey, who's here in Atlanta as well, like who's all about the nap ministry. All of these things, you know, get your rest, take your naps, all of that. And just being intentional about the ways that you spend your time. And so that is something to really think about, because a lot of us probably have more free time than what we think we do.
We do, but I think, you know, going back to the idea of like restoring yourself and machine mindset, and the fact that so many of us are not driving the car, like our social norms, our workplace norms, our societal norms, our family norms, all of these norms really run so much of our lives. And so it takes effort and intentionality to stop and assess your time for what you need to get out of it. Because people are going to always fill your schedule with things that work for them, whether it's your organization and the company that you work for, your business, your family, the people who count on you for care and feeding and emotional support. And, and perhaps this is the next book. I have a lot of thoughts about the socialization of women, especially to be so selfless and giving to the point that we have nothing left for ourselves. Yes. We've been socialized and it's been normalized that is how we're supposed to operate. And so in terms of realigning your time, I think it starts with, again, the winter reflection. What is most energizing to me? And then as I start to craft a plan for what I want to plant next spring, I need to be planning the things that were energizing and restorative for me as well. Like I need to get myself back on my own agenda because this is my life. Right? Like we got everybody on the agenda but us. Right. And that sounds crazy, but the crazier thing to me is the fact that we're judged if we don't move like that. Like that's just what is expected. And that's, I don't know. I'm not with it.
Me neither, Amanda. I'm not with it. Yes. And
that's why this is a revolution, right? It's like
that's why it's a revolution.
It's a revolution against these norms too that hold us hostage. All of these rules that we've made. Work twice as hard. Well, a mother always puts her children first, even if it means that she has to, sit there and fall apart. Like who? I think one of the things that has been interesting for me is I start to kind of peel back layers and say, who does this benefit? Because it's not benefiting me. Like who put this rule in place? Right?
That's true. Who does it benefit? That's a thought. One of the questions to ask.
This question to ask. Who is this benefiting? Who is my exhaustion benefiting? Who is my martyrdom benefiting? Who is my, expectation that I have literally no time for my own self-care because I'm caring for everyone else, but they can't be bothered to, pull the weight of their own existence. Like, who is that benefiting?
Who does that benefit? Last but not least, well, not the last chapter, but just the last thing we have a couple of minutes for, because we're actually going to probably go over by a couple if you're okay with that. But you talk about restoration of community, and that's a big thing, because oftentimes we are in these bubbles of work, and family or whatever these obligations are that we have to other, to things outside that are maybe bringing in income or, whatever the case may be. In the case of a family, it's not an income, but, it's just your obligation, so to speak. But oftentimes there are those relationships that kind of fall by the wayside. And how do we begin to restore community as a form of rest?
Yeah. So I think, again, when you do your winter work, your winter reflection, and you think about the people who you miss, you think about the people who made this year good, you think about the people who helped you create good memories, instead of simply remembering and saying, oh, that was fun. I want people to begin prioritizing the people that help them generate energy. So one of the things that we didn't really talk about, this theory of misalignment. My theory is that, okay, yes, you're overworking and that leads to burnout, but there's all of these different ways that we're misaligned because we don't know who we are, or we do know who we are, and we're just betraying ourselves. Like we're just doing all the things that are antithetical to our own happiness, comfort, joy, right? And so when you are misaligned, just like a car, if you drive a car out of alignment, like it'll drive, but it's not going to be comfortable,
Comfortable.
And it creates friction, and friction uses up unnecessary energy. And so you really start to have to look for what are the things that generate energy for me. There are energy generating activities, right? So your hobbies, the work that you love, the things that really light you up, and you lose time because you're in flow and you're so happy doing them. And then there are people who create that energy for you as well. And so in my mind, if I am in burnout and so exhausted from all the things that drain me, I've got to start planting, putting back in the soil the nutrients that I need to be my best. And so for me, that's my writing hobby. That's my time in nature, but it's also, that friendship and community with my moms, with other women, with people who I may not earn more money from hanging out with them, but I am refueled and restored and just energized and happier to have them in my life. And I think the machine mindset and the modern work culture pretty much puts work, money, achievement over everything else. But when you look at anyone's life, especially at the end of their lives, the things that matter to them were the people and those hobbies, the service. So it's like, how can we realign, get back to the things that really help us to flourish, help us to really grow, to extend the whole metaphor of the seasons and growth. What helps me to bloom and be my very best is going to be different from what helps you bloom and be your best. But that's why you have to become a student of yourself and get intentional about planting the things and adding back in the things that bring you energy and joy.
Right. And like pruning and all the different things.
Exactly. And pruning the things that drain you.
It's things you got to do to make that happen. But absolutely. So thank you so much. Amanda, this has been a great conversation. As you know, I actually read the book.
You did. I love it. I'm just like itching to talk to people who've read it. So
and
thank you for reading.
It's just good. And it's timely for me as I am in this, sabbatical of sorts. I'm saying of sorts because I still got things to do. But it's really, just real briefly for me, reading this, it's helping me to really think about some things. How am I going to, when I get back into the flow of my normal, and after the new year, how am I going to make sure that I'm restoring myself? What things do I need to do? Like when I get up in the morning to start my day off right before everything else starts to happen around me, make sure that I'm centered and that I, have done what I need to do spiritually, emotionally, physically, all those things, so that you don't get into this work mode and work all day and then realize you haven't taken any time for yourself.
Can I give you one little tidbit that's not in the book for your sabbatical planning? I did a talk with some of the leaders at Southern Poverty Law Center about a month or 6 weeks ago. And we were talking about the book and, the different ideas within. And I think it was like the front burnering your joy piece and finding things that you love to do. And one of the gentlemen in the presentation was like, well, how do you know what you like to do? Which kind of broke my heart, but also speaks to this idea that we don't know who we are. And so I was like, okay, if you are so focused on work that you have lost sense of what you enjoy, what lights you up, the things you want to explore, maybe it's not something that you currently do, but maybe it's something that you've had the curiosity to explore and try, but you haven't given yourself a chance, or you haven't given yourself the time to pursue it. For you during this season of sabbatical, I want you to try to remember the last few things that you said, if I had an extra, month, or an extra $1,000 or an extra whatever, I would X.
Right.
Like I would go here. I would visit this place. I would take this class. I would try that cuisine. Our hunger, our curiosity that's like those are like the signs, you know. Like I'm literally
Absolutely.
visualizing the signs of my grandmother's town, like Swainsboro, 16 miles. Like those are the the guideposts to get you to you. Like, and we are so practiced in ignoring that little voice that says, oh, I wonder what that would be like. I wonder, you know, how it would feel to be that. That seems fun. We're so practiced in just shutting that down and ignoring. So I want you to try to remember, what are the last few things that you didn't allow, or just you didn't have time to explore, or it danced across your brain and you just let it keep going. Grab it and give yourself permission to explore that this year.
Yeah.
Just see where it goes. No promises. It doesn't have to become anything.
Right. Right. And I actually got some ideas along those lines, because just, 2 seconds. Recently, I made some sweet potato pies for an event with my sorors, and it was like, I love to bake. I don't need to eat it, but I do love to bake. So I'm like, you know what? In 2025, I'm going to start baking more frequently, because it's something, as a child, I actually wanted to work in a bakery, and I was telling somebody, I probably would have been on Food Network by now, but it didn't happen, but it's something that I enjoy. And I said, I wanted to make space for that. So that, and you see the paintings behind me, they're actually mine. I haven't painted in a long time. So, making space for that as well. So yeah, I've been thinking about it. I have definitely.
You said the magic word when I was a child. If we can access, that's the goal. Like, if you can remember the things you liked doing as a child, that was the purest you. It's funny. It's this lyric from a John Mayer song. I always listen to him when we're doing road trips. But he says, chart a course to the source of the purest little part of me. And that's essentially what you're doing when you're evoking those childhood passions and memories. You're charting a course to the source of the purest part of yourself. And what would happen if you went to that? It's like a spring, right? Of the purest water you could possibly drink, and went there instead of ignoring it or denying it, but exploring it. Like you will find yourself there. She's waiting for you.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. And and exploring, using a new muscle or a different muscle,
or a muscle that you've allowed to atrophy over time.
It does something. So yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are not going to hold these people all night.
Thank you all for joining us. I don't know who's here, but
yes, there are people in the room, and there will be people who will watch later as well. But yes, this book is delicious, especially for those who have been, trying not to work too hard, trying not to do too much, and trying to figure out a way or a plan or a system of sorts that will help them rethink. Because you're not like definitively prescriptive to us, but you just give us those questions and that food for thought.
I try to prescribe within a wide enough frame that you can find your own way.
Right.
Essentially, the prescription, you are the doctor. You must prescribe.
You must. What's it? Physician, heal thyself. There you go. So that's that. So, Amanda, are there any places or space? I know we're in the holiday season, but are there any places or spaces where you'll be in the weeks ahead that people can be on the lookout for you?
Well, I am still putting together my events and signings, etc. My grandmother kind of changed my focus a bit, but I think in the new year I will probably be traveling. So once I have some dates, I will absolutely put those on the book website, which is therestrevolutionbook.com. But I'm online. I'm on Threads a lot lately.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Love a good thread. And again, I am very eager to discuss the book. So if anyone watching picks it up, reads it, just message me, send me a thread or a note, because I would love to have more conversations like this one. This has been so fun and so energy generating.
Yes, I love it. I love it. We love conversations that generate positive energy. I love it. I love it. So I'm going to let you grab a sip of water while I just say good night to everyone. But thank you again, Amanda. And just don't hang up. Don't hang up just yet.
I won't.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Yes, that was a fun conversation and a book that I needed personally because, you know, I'm on this time of rest and restoration and thinking about how I'm going to move forward as, you know, all of the things, thinking about, you know, what I want to plant, what needs to be watered, what needs to be tilled, you know, all those sorts of things. So this book was right on time for me. And I am thankful to Amanda for writing it, thankful to her for coming and speaking to us. And again, thankful to our mutual friend, Wanda Lloyd, for making sure that we got a chance to meet each other and have this conversation. So to everyone else, I do encourage you to pick up a copy of the book. And if you're watching this later, you know, still pick up a copy of the book and follow Amanda on all of her socials so you can keep up with the work that she has going on and learn more of what is forthcoming. So that's all I've got for now. We are going to be wrapping up here in a couple of weeks with our end of the year wrap up of like the best authors, the best books, the best conversations, all that sort of thing. So be on the lookout in the next couple of days to see a survey that will allow you to vote for the best of the year. So be on the lookout for that. And I will see you again real soon next week. Take good care. Bye.